Today is the sixth Sunday in ordinary time. And in our readings today, something stands out. Which is the best gift that God has given to humanity after the gift of life and salvation? And that is the gift of freedom. We are free. God created us and gave us the free will to make choices. But whatever choice we make comes with responsibility, corresponding consequences, and the results. And that is where we can take moral responsibility for the choices we make. The first reading states it so clearly from the book of Sirach, where God himself, through this author, says, if you desire, you will keep the commandments, and to act faithfully is a matter of choice. It's a matter of choice. You choose what you want to do with that freedom. But it is freedom that comes with responsibility. Last Sunday, we talked about being the salt of the earth and light of the world. And this is one way of sincerely living out that responsibility, that vocation as a Christian made in the image and likeness of God, becoming the light to other nations, reflecting the light of Christ. If you want to, if you desire, you are not coerced. You are not forced. But if you choose to, if you want to, if you desire, then these are the things that you must do. These are the ways that you must express that desire, express that commitment, express that faith. The reading goes on to tell us that God has placed before us life and death, fire and water. Stretch out your hands to choose whatever you want to, bearing in mind the responsibility, the consequence of whatever choice we make. The psalmist tells us that those who live as God wants are the blessed ones. They allow the law of the Lord to guide them, to lead them. And once we allow the law of the Lord to be our guide, then we shall never stumble. We will never go astray. We will always walk in the right path. Jesus takes up this again in the gospel when he tells us, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. Jesus has not come to lower the standard. In fact, he raises the standard because now we are configured into the image of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And with that, we have been given the grace necessary to be able to live this kind of life that we are being invited into. So do not think that I've come to abolish them. No, I've not come to abolish, but to raise them, to fulfill them. And it goes on to tell us, you have heard how it was said, thou shalt not kill. That is an act. But he goes beyond that to what could lead to that act of committing murder, and which is anger and resentment. It begins with a thought, with a feeling of anger, leading to a thought and eventually now putting it to use, executing that anger and that murder of others. But he is telling us that being angry with people, being resentful towards them, is something that we ought to avoid as a way of expressing that we have undertaken, we have made the right choice to live by the dictates and laws of God. It is difficult. but not an impossibility. He also goes to tell us, you have heard how it was said, thou shalt not commit adultery. But he goes beyond that, the act of infidelity, to the act of purity, the invitation to purity. Anyone who looks at someone, at a lady, at a woman lustfully, has already committed adultery in his heart. So it is not only the act, but also the plan, the thought of it. So calling us to purity of life in everything, the choice. Nowadays, we always hear the people say, it is my life, I decide what I do with it. You may decide, but there is a consequence of any decision that you have made. And that is what the readings of today are trying to make us to understand and to take responsibility, to know that it's freedom, but freedom with responsibility. Freedom that must be lived responsibly in the world, in our relationship with God, our relationship with others, in our attitudes, in our behaviors. You don't just choose, because where your freedom stops, another person's freedom begins. Jesus goes on to tell us that reconciliation is important in our relationship with Him. He even places that above any offering and holocaust we might want to offer. And he says, if you are bringing your offering and discover that someone has something against you, not that you have something against someone, the person is the one that has offended you, that has hurt you, that has something against you, then leave your offering there. Go and make up with the person. That is the offering that Jesus Christ wants. That is the offering that pleases God. To do away with things that keep us enmity with one another. To reconcile with others. And that becomes an expression of our love. An expression of our relationship with God, with Jesus Christ. He even goes on to tell us, if any part of you will cause you to sin, cut it off. Do away with it. I don't know the challenges you are having. I don't know the tendencies you have. But if we sit within ourselves and reflect, we'll be able to understand and see those things. And then, that act of renunciation, of detachment, of doing away with them, of purging ourselves of the wrong feelings and thoughts, of the wrong ideas, of the evil thoughts. This becomes the right way to purge ourselves of the evil acts, and then to live in the right manner that Jesus Christ wants from us. Detaching from the world, detaching from pleasure, detaching from the evil companies, detaching from the evil locations and environments, being practical in the way that we want to live our lives, being intentional, putting the end in view when we are taking decisions, when we are making choices. Asking ourselves, is it a right thing to do? Does it bring the right results? How many people will be offended by this? How many people will benefit from it? Does it give God glory? Does it proclaim the name of God? Maybe when we have put all this to reflection, then we can take that decision. This is a noble act that I can perform and go on with it. So today, The Lord places before us life and death, blessing and curse. The path of life is not simply rule keeping, but a heart transformed by love. St. Paul in the second reading tells us that no eye has seen, no ear has heard, nor has it ever been imagined by the mind of man what God has in stock for those that love him. And to show that we love God is to put to good use the freedom, the free will, the ability to choose, which is a gift that he has given to us.